What's up, web surfers? If you haven't been to my channel before, my name is Andrew. I am a costume designer, and like many people in the arts, I need day jobs to help me get by and pay my bills while looking for that lucrative art gig. And I've decided to take on that classic side job of bartending. Now, I thought it would be fun, since I'm a costume designer, to go to my bartending classes dressed as different famous bartenders, both real and fictional. And being that I am a millennial, I decided to start, of course, with everyone's favorite bartender, Moe Szyslak from The Simpsons. Now, I've already made this costume, so I'm going to put it on for you in just a minute. But first, I'm going to have a short little video showing you the whole process of making it. Now, you may notice that it takes place over several different periods of time. You'll see my hair style change dramatically several times because I've been working on this for a while now. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off by making Moe's apron. I bought this blue fabric. I can't remember what type of fabric it is, but I have 1.5 yards here, and it's going to be suitable for my apron. I measured the length of the apron first, because that's the most important part, and I cut the fabric. Essentially, I cut it in half. The rest of this fabric I'm going to use for the strap on the sides and the tie that goes around your neck, and of course, Moe's infamous bow tie. And then next, I'm going to cut the bib. I think that's what it's called. You know, it's the part of the apron that goes up over your chest. Now, here is where you can learn from my mistakes, because I measured from my shoulder 7 inches, but then when I went to cut the fabric, I measured 7 inches from the top of the fabric by mistake. So I ended up taking off a couple more inches than I wanted to, which is an easy fix. You can shorten the bib. You'll end up shortening the whole apron, of course. But in any event, as soon as I got that done, of course, I tried it on, because if something is wearable, I'm putting it on. And now you can see that I am cutting out the straps. So I lay my measuring tape across the bias, 27 inches. So I measure from one corner to the other and just slide it down till it reaches 27 inches. And this will maximize the fabric I have to work with. And of course, the extra corners I'm going to use later to make my bow tie, because I like to not have any waste at all if possible. So I'm just measuring with my straight ruler here to cut equal lengths. Now these straps will be very simple to make. I'm just going to fold them in half and sew along the long edge. But before I do that, I'm going to hem my whole skirt. Hem my whole apron, I mean. I'm just going to do a rolled hem. Rolled hem just means you fold it over twice and sew down the long edge. And I'm going to have mitered corners. Mitered corners, that's kind of like your picture frame corners. That's when you fold the corner into the center and then they fold the two edges to meet each other. And that makes it look pretty as a picture. It's a nice professional finish for your work. So then I just fold the straps in half and sew all the way along the line here. I ended up with 4. What you can do if you want to get your exact lengths, you can sew them all end to end and then cut them the way you want. But I had enough extra here, I was able to just make what I need. And then I want the strap to tie underneath the apron, so to do that I have to make a way for the strap to go inside. And I ended up doing what looks like a giant buttonhole. It's just a slit on the side, and I put this square piece of interfaced fabric over it and sewed around the opening and just turned it to the inside, and that will make a nice smooth finish, and you won't even notice it from the outside. Look at that. You can sew around the edges too to make it even neater. And then I tried it on. Of course, I took my clothes off. I didn't want them interfering, so I just pin it exactly where I want it to be with safety pins. You can use straight pins as well. And of course, it'd be much easier if I had a model other than me, but I'm happy to do it, of course. And it is definitely several inches lower than what I wanted, but that's okay. I had the strap crossed in the back, and to make sure that those don't get twisted up and turned about, I'm going to lay it out nice and flat on my table. visually so I can see where they are, and I'm not going to accidentally sew them wrapped around each other, which is something that tends to happen. Again, if you're keeping count, that's mistake number 2 I'm informing you of. I probably did have to undo this once or twice. I left the extra length on just in case I wanted to make it longer or shorter, in case someone else has to wear this costume at some point. It's always easy just to undo a straight stitch. And now I'm moving on to Moe's shirt. Now I have a cobalt blue fabric. It's kind of on the gray side. And you can see I rectified my mistake from before. I have my measurements drawn out on a piece of paper. And now I'm using my pins just to plot every little corner and dig and nuance of the shirt. So I cut across the neck, the shoulder, all the way around the outside of the pins, about 1/4 to 7/8 or 5/8 of an inch. And now I'm scooping out the neck just to indicate where it is. I'll cut it bigger later. I'm cutting the length and the height, and then when I cut the back side, I'm going to lay the fabric next to it so I can make sure that my seams and my underarm holes line up, and that the shoulder is going to be where I want it to be. Now the shoulder seam is not always on the very top of your shoulder. In most t-shirts it's going to be slightly forward. That comes into play later. And the first thing I'm going to do when it comes to putting the garment together is sew the front to the back at the shoulders to check the neck. Now here is mistake number 3 that I made. I failed to acknowledge that when I sew the collar on, it takes a seam allowance off the either side and makes the neck opening bigger. So I ended up with a slightly bigger neck opening than what I wanted. And here I am trying it on again because, like I said, I have to try things on. Making sure the shoulder and the side seams are going to fall in my general position. And that looks good. So I'm going to take a measurement around the neck hole, and I got it where I want it, and I'm going to cut out the collar. Now the collar piece is going to be a trapezoidal piece, so the one side is going to be longer than the other. And then after that, I'm going to interface it. Now typically what you want to do, if you're not using a ribbed fabric for your collar, if it's just using the self fabric as I am here, you want to interface it. Generally, you want to interface it all the way down. Here you are. Here's another tip while we're at it. See, I cut half the collar and then folded it over on top of itself to cut out the other half so it would be completely symmetrical. And now I'm moving on to the interfacing. I only interfaced the corner, mistake number 3. I should have interfaced the whole thing, but I wanted it to be flexible because I did not want a huge neck opening. And I wanted it to retain its basic shape. But you can use just a slightly stiffer fabric and cut it on the bias if you want just a slight stretch in the collar while retaining the stiffness. That is what I would do next time if I had a choice. And now I'm attaching the collar. Actually, I have attached the collar to the shirt, and this is the part where I'm going to do a nice finish. I'm going to take a bias, which is a strip cut on the angle of the same fabric, and I'm going to attach it to the outside of my collar. Then I'm going to double fold it over the raw edges and sew on the outside so it makes a nice flat seam on the inside against your neck. It looks nice and professional. Now I also did a basic polo collar without the button. I have a little bit of a facing on the inside. Mistake number 4, I did the facing after I did this little binding. That's kind of the wrong order to do things. But it's not a big deal to anyone but me, I know that. So anyway, this bit is a little bit difficult. But once you get that done, I can move on to doing the sleeve. I cut out the sleeve. The sleeve is just like a bell curve. And I cut the measurement a little bit smaller than the opening because it's a knit fabric. It's going to stretch a little bit. And you don't want extra because then your sleeve will look flappy. You don't want a flappy sleeve. And I cut it, of course, symmetrically, folded over on the fabric. And then I'm going to put the top of the curve on my shoulder, which, as you recall from before, the shoulder is not exactly on the very center. The seam isn't anyway, so you want it on top of the actual shoulder and spread around. And because you're cutting on the curve, of course, you're going to need a lot of needles because it tends to shift and you're going to forget where you are. You're going to lose your place if you don't have needles. or pins rather, every now and then all along the edges. So I pin it all the way around before I sew. And of course you can do a set-in sleeve, which is where you sew the sides of the shirt together and then the sleeve sides together and then set it in the hole. But I want a seam going all the way from the top of the sleeve down through the side of the shirt. So I'm just going to attach at the shoulders first, like so. And then I'm gonna put the basting stitches on the side seam so I can try it on for yet a third time and see where my seams will fall. And of course, I could do as I did before. I can use pins or safety pins to indicate where I want to take it in. Once I do that, I can carefully take the shirt off and do my final step, which is to go to my serger. Now, a serger is going to be your best friend once you figure out how to use it. It's a little intimidating because it's got up to 4 threads and 2 needles, but it's how you make your finishes look professional, because it is going to cut and bind within 2 threads, or in this case 1 thread. 3 threads, sorry. It's gonna cut and bind within 3 threads the raw edges of the shirt, and it's gonna do all the raw edges, and when I've got that done, it is going to be a nice professional finish, and that is Moe's shirt for you. Alright, so now it's time for me to try on this costume. Again, of course I've done it several times. Start with the shirt here. This little bow tie. I just made this from a pattern. I didn't feel the need to show you all that process. These are the little bits you need to hook it on. Now, I have never bought a bow tie that you actually have to tie. Everything I've bought is this style where it's just clipped in the back. Okay, shirt, tie, that looks good. Excuse me while I use my phone as a mirror. Next is the apron. We're on the right side forward. This is the tricky bit because it's going to come underneath. Now, I made this apron cartoon accurate, so it's not like an apron you'll buy in the store. It's designed entirely to look like it came right out of the show, so it's going to be a little more difficult to finagle here. Now, I did my research. I looked up several different videos of Moe on the internet. And if you need to look up a video of anything, it is already out there on the internet. I did not need to do any research of my own. I just had to watch someone like Lydia Loves Timelines, people like that. And to finish it off, I'm just going to put on this gray wig I bought specifically for this character. As soon as I find the front. And there you have it. It's scary how much I could pull this off. Well, it could be worse. I could look like Homer. There you go. What do you think? The resemblance is uncanny, right? Right? You can see me yelling at a kid over the phone, right? Ta-da! I still gotta work on the voice. I don't know how to sound like Moe. All I know is how to make my voice gravelly. Still needs some work. I'm gonna rip your spine out through your mouth if I get a hold of you, Bart Simpson. Whatever. Oh well, that could be better. Man, I look more like Mr. Burns, if we're being honest. That kind of sucks. Oh well, thank you for watching my video. Hopefully you come back. But not too soon. Oh, I wouldn't say that. Oh well.